Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Shonna Snyder. I am co-author of a new textbook that came out just recently called Core Teaching Practices for Health Education. I'm happy to be here at Human Kinetics Virtual Health and PE Symposium. And today I would like to talk about reflection as a critical teaching practice. What we're going to talk about today is what is reflection, just kind of go over it real quick. Why should we do it? And then how do we do it best? How do we do it well? I'm also going to, at the end, talk to those of you who may be specializing in teacher prep and give you a couple tips about what I have done and why I think it's important for us to incorporate that into our teacher preparation programs. All right, so we define reflection as a purposeful act of inquiry into your own behavior or your students' behavior in order to improve your teaching and student learning. So there are a couple of key words here. It's purposeful. So you have to plan it. You have to think about it. You have to be purposeful about reflecting. And it is inquiry. All right, so you are asking questions of yourself, of your students, about things that happen, and we'll get into this a little bit more as we go. We put it in layman's terms. All right, here are a couple things that you can kind of look at and say, okay, am I reflecting? Am I doing some of these things? Are you thinking about how you taught your lesson? Did you ask yourself if it worked? Okay, that's part of reflection. Are you asking yourself if a particular activity worked? Did a particular lesson work? What about that lesson worked? What about that activity worked? This is part of reflection. Are you asking yourself, what could you do to get better tomorrow? If you taught this lesson again, how could you make it better? You have this same group of students for the rest of the semester. What can you do to engage them better? So what could you do to make this work better the next time, whether that's tomorrow, or whether that's next semester, or whether that's next year? If you're thinking about those terms, there's inquiry, right? This is reflection. While students are engaging in a lesson, while you are teaching a lesson, are you observing things that are going on in that moment? That's part of reflection. All right, it's important that we know that. So we talk about reflection a lot, but I think sometimes we may be doing it, but we're not naming it. So I think it's important that we sometimes name it. I am reflecting if during my lesson I'm picking up on things and I'm changing. Maybe right in the middle of a lesson, I'm realizing this isn't working. I have to do something different. You are reflecting. All right. So that's good. That's a good practice. We want to see teachers who are doing that practice. Right. Some facts that we have to consider then about reflection. It can happen before, during, or after the lesson or activity. Could happen before, during, or after the unit. The sequence of instruction that you're doing at that moment for that day, for the week, for, it's just a segment of instruction even. So before, I'm going to reflect. What should I do? All right. What are some things I could do? Well, how do I think this lesson is going to go? How do I think students will react? Right. During, is this working? Are students listening? Are students learning right now? Is my classroom managed? Right, what's happening in this environment? And then after, did it work? What would I do different? Right, these are the things that we have to think about. And when we think about reflection, this is the fact. It has to happen before, during, and after. Right, it can't only be after, because then you're not thinking ahead. You're not reflecting about what may happen tomorrow or the next time I teach this lesson. Okay, next fact. It can happen immediately, or it can happen long after the event. So you may teach a lesson or do an activity and write some notes down immediately about what worked and what didn't work. And so the next time you teach that activity or that lesson, you do it different. You look at those notes. You wrote those notes immediately. You might be thinking about a lesson that you want to teach and think about last semester. How did that lesson go? All right. So, I have taught a couple of lessons in a general health class that I teach at the college level. And I will think back to the last semester. How did that activity go last semester with college students? Did they like it? Did they not like it? So give an example, Kahoot. The first time I did Kahoot, I was like, oh man, I was reflecting, right? So before reflecting, I don't think this is going to work. I don't know they're going to like this, but I'm going to try it. I tried it and they liked it. They loved it. They thought this was the greatest thing. So I made several Kahoots. And then after doing them for maybe a couple of different classes, I began to reflect over a couple of semesters and realized that there was one Kahoot that just always bombed. It was never that great. It was long after the events of me doing that Kahoot. All right. So it can happen immediately. It can happen long after an event. Reflection really should be ongoing. All right. It can be about you, the student, the environment, the lesson. You can reflect on a lot of different things. All right. And you really, I kind of on this one, I think you will know. Oftentimes, if you are purposeful and you are inquiring about your teaching behaviors, about your students' behaviors, there are things that are just going to bubble up that you will think about, things that went well, things that didn't go well. So think when those things bubble up, write them down, reflect on it, right? Make yourself some notes, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of those things here in a minute. It must be done through a critical lens. This does not mean that you criticize, but you must be critical. You must ask the hard questions. Is this working? Why didn't it work? Was it something that I did? You may have to own it. Right. So that's a critical lens. You do have to ask those hard questions. It doesn't mean that you are necessarily critical, right? So you shouldn't walk away saying, I'm a bad teacher. I am no good at this. My students hate me. Okay. Now, if your students hate you, you need to critically think about that. Why? Right. Hopefully they don't, and they probably don't. But we need to have a critical lens if we are truly reflecting. All right. So it takes some purposeful thought, and purposeful thought needs to be critical thought. All right. So I need to critically think about what happened here. What went well? What didn't go so well? What can I change? Right. So a few facts about reflection. Okay. Why though? Why do we do this? I think this is my bottom line. We have to do this so we become better teachers and students become better learners. This is really why we should reflect. If we are not doing this, we're probably not becoming a better teacher. We know data tells us that the teachers who get better and who are good have this skill. They purposefully spend time thinking about a lesson in the future and in the past, and then during the event, they are reflecting about what's happening in the moment. All right. So bottom line, why should we do it? We want to get better. We want students to be better learners. This is our bottom line. Now, we also should do this because it helps us maintain good teaching practices. All right. If we are reflecting and we're finding certain patterns, certain ways that we are talking to students, certain lessons or activities that we keep doing over and over and over. We're not mixing it up, for example. There are all sorts of things that we could be reflecting on. If we do this, it will help us maintain good teaching practices. All right. So we should do this. It will help us refine and or correct practices that need improvement. if you find yourself in a rut, if you find yourself doing the same activities over and over, if you find yourself saying a lot, right? There are things that we can do to get better at some of these things. If you find that your classroom is out of control, all right, reflecting can help you improve on that. It can help you pinpoint, why is my classroom management so poor? What's happening? Reflection can help with this. It can help us determine if we are truly impacting student learning. If we are not impacting student learning, we need to change some things up. That's our whole point of teaching. Reflection can help us determine that. Reflecting on grades, reflecting on performances that students did. So determining our impact on student learning, it can help us to do that. It can help us achieve our goal, which ultimately should be student learning. So again, the bottom line, reflection can help us. We want to be better teachers. It can help us do that. All right. So reflection can help us. How do we do it? All right. There are some things that will help us do it best. That will help us do it well. Recording things immediately is probably a good practice to get into, simply because you won't forget about it. It's fresh on your mind. You can write it down right away. What was said, what happened, what time, which activity, what time of the day. There are a lot of things that may have made a difference in how something went. Record it. Record your interactions, record your perceptions, record your memories, record the event. Do that immediately. This will help you reflect better. All right. Give yourself time. Reflection is a conscious practice. It doesn't come naturally to some people. To others, it does a little bit more naturally, but you have to think. It's a conscious practice. You have to think about it. You have to give yourself then some time. If you're taking 2 minutes out of your day to reflect, you're probably not giving yourself much time to really stop and think about what happened today, what went well. This student said this. I wonder why. This student did this. Wow, it really messed our class up. And how can I make sure that doesn't happen again? To answer these hard questions, that critical piece, it's going to take a little bit of time. Block yourself out some time. All right. Change. What do I mean by this? After you have reflected, you have to do something. Or you have to do something. You have to change. You will reflect and realize this is what I should change. That is what I should change. Do it. Right? It takes action. So to be a really good person, to be good at reflection, all right, it's going to require that you change. All right. Visit the issue a few times and maybe even visit it consistently. So maybe classroom management is your weakness. Maybe you're a young teacher, you're learning about classroom management. Reflect on that daily, maybe for a while, or at least weekly for a while. How is your classroom management going? All right. So revisit the issue several times. It's not just always about the lesson or the activity. It could be about some broader issue, right? It could be about an issue going on in your school or in your community. It could be a broader issue like some social issue that's happening in society or in our school. It could be about SEL, right? So these bigger, broader issues may be things that you should reflect on. So it's not always just about the lesson. All right, you can reflect on many things as a teacher, and things that impact your classroom, things that are impacting students, things that are impacting your school and or community. These are all things that you could reflect about, and they don't necessarily have anything to do with your lesson. Good reflection, right, actually steps outside of the lesson. And so I think these are some ways that we can reflect best, right? We can be good at it. So how do we do it? All right. Journal, right? I teach my future teachers to get a little notebook. One of the little journal ledgers are great. You get them, you know, Office Depot, Walmart, Target, wherever, especially beginning of the school year, sometimes for 50 cents, 75 cents, $1 maybe, but normally they're pretty cheap. And I tell them to write on the outside the year, and this is my journal. And each day I tell them to get into the habit of writing in that. Anything, write anything in there, but reflect. How did the day go? How did the lesson go? What's going on in your school? Was there something with a particular student? I have them journal and reflect about that. So get a journal and journal. Talk it out. Talk it out. You can reflect with others. How did a lesson go? Maybe you even team taught with someone else. Talk to them. How do you think this lesson went? Maybe an issue came up in a class and you need to go talk to a peer about it and say, I don't know what to do. Let me tell you about what happened. Okay, that's reflection. Talk it out with a peer. Ask your students. Give them a poll. Give them a survey. How do you think I'm doing? How do you like this class? Did you like that activity? What would you like to do in the future? Are there any big projects you'd like to do? Ask them. And this is part of reflection. This is that critical piece, critically thinking about how you want your class to go. Right? Poll your students, ask them. Video yourself. I know none of us like to do this. I don't like to do it either. As I do this webinar for you, I don't like to do this. But it is really important for us to sometimes do this and really look at ourselves on video and say, what am I doing? How is this going? What do I see here? If this was someone else, what advice would I give them? Right? Self-reflect and maybe video yourself. And watch yourself, see what's happening. If you can do this in a classroom setting, you may pick up on other student or on student behaviors or other things that are going on in your classroom that you may not have even known, but you videoed it. And then when watching, you saw these things, right? So I highly recommend videoing yourself. Use what we call a teaching inventory. Now, basically, this is a checklist. There are many of these online. Some of your schools may have these and they're used as an evaluation type method. But what we recommend here is do this for yourself. Do one of these teaching inventories on yourself and ask yourself the questions that you might see on one of these that you pulled offline or that your school has. But ask yourself these questions. Things like, how are my interactions with students? What was my tone of voice today? Did I have to get loud and boisterous? Did I say something I shouldn't have said? Am I too timid? Ask yourself these questions. What's going on in your classroom environment? What are you doing to manage that classroom environment? What are you doing to manage student behavior? What's happening with certain lessons, with certain parts of your lesson? Is the first part of your lesson really great, and by the end, in 45 or 50 minutes, by the end of that period, everything's kind of fizzling out and things are getting out of control? You started out great, but you're ending really poorly. What's happening? Ask yourself these questions. So a teaching inventory can oftentimes help you to ask some of these questions and really reflect on what is happening here in my teaching. Are there behaviors that I need to change? Are there things I need to do different? Now, I also want to flip that coin. You may find there are things that are going really well. Keep doing them. Reflect on it. This went great today. All right. So I don't always want to talk about what not to do. I want to make sure that I also address what to do. Some of you are doing some great things. Reflect on why they're great. Why are they working? You're seeing students learn, you're seeing students get engaged. What is it about that is working? Why are students engaging? And maybe you can look at that activity and compare it to some others where they're not engaging and figure out, how do I change these other activities so that I can get more engagement out of students? Okay. So what works, and reflect on that as well. It's not always about what doesn't work. All right. All right. Last kind of tip here, I think, from me, because I've spent most of my career in teacher preparation. A few things that I want to say to you if you are in a teacher prep program. You are the driving force behind developing this skill in future teachers. If you don't teach it to them, they probably will not do it. If you don't emphasize it, that reflection is important, they probably will not do it. All right. So it is imperative that in our teacher prep programs, we incorporate reflection. All right. Now, my hope, right, is that we require it. We should require them to reflect, but we need to require that they reflect well, right? So if in your teacher prep program, you simply say, write a 2-page summary about how it went. Okay, you're helping them to do some reflection. I'm not sure that you're helping them to do it well. We have to teach them how to reflect well, right? It must be taught. For most of our undergraduate students, this is not a behavior, a skill that they will just automatically do, right? It must be taught. We have to teach them how to reflect. We have to make them practice, all right? It has to hold some significance in your program, meaning there is some consequence attached to it, right? So as an example, what I do with my future teachers is after every lesson, they have a reflection rubric, and we go over this rubric. We talk about the rubric so that they know what each kind of bullet point means, like what is it that they're supposed to do. So we talk about what went well, what didn't go well, how would I improve on the things that didn't go well, how will I maintain the things that did go well. I have them look at the environment of their classroom. What's on the walls in this classroom? All right. How are students seated in this classroom? So we look at the classroom environment, the physical environment. We look at the social and emotional environment. What happened in this lesson as I taught today in the social and emotional realm, right? So there is a rubric. When they write this reflection, this causes them to then think about all of these things that they need to reflect on. So what's happening is I'm teaching them. They are what reflection is and how to do it. They are practicing, because after every lesson, and by the way, whether this lesson is with peers or we're actually out in the schools and they're getting real field experience, they must write a reflection, right? So they must practice it. And this holds significance because it is part of their grade for that entire experience. All right. So planning the lesson, teaching the lesson, reflecting on the lesson, it is all part of that experience. So there is some significance there. It's not just, hey, I want you to do this, and then I never ask them to turn anything into me, right? So they understand that this is a significant thing, and we spend time on it so they know that it's significant. And then the last thing that I would do is I would say to myself and those of you who might be in teacher prep programs, is model it. Or you have to model it. Come in on a day and say, I've been thinking about this. We did this activity last week and it just didn't go well. I could tell that y'all just didn't like it that well. Let's talk about that. Okay, you're modeling reflection. You're modeling this behavior that is critical if we're going to be good teachers. Model it. Maybe you keep a journal. Bring it in and say, look, I want to read to you all like what I put in my journal yesterday about our class yesterday and what we did, right? And maybe you read something that says, what a great class. My students love this activity. And you talk about what the activity was. Read it to them. Model reflection, right? This is going to help our future teachers understand this is an important skill that they must learn if they are going to continue to be better teachers as they continue in their careers. Especially as a beginning teacher, it's a great habit to get into, and we want to help them get into this habit. So reflection, it's an important part of our teacher prep programs that I think we must pay attention to. All right. We dig a little deeper in our textbook. Feel free to pick it up from Human Kinetics. My email is here. If you have any further questions, want to talk to me about anything, always open to do webinars and do guest speaking. I hope you got a little bit about reflection, a little bit out of this about reflection today, and we'll pass it along. Have a good afternoon.